There are moments in life when everything on the outside appears normal. The job continues, the days pass, the conversations repeat, but something deep within begins to ache. You feel it at night, in the silence between your thoughts, in the restlessness that no achievement can silence. It is not depression. It is not boredom. It is the soul knocking at the door of your awareness, and it does not come with words. It comes with images, with dreams you do not understand, with synchronicities too precise to be chance, with symbols that haunt you without permission. You sense that your life is not random, that there is meaning beneath the surface, but you cannot grasp it, and no book can give it to you, because what you are searching for is not information, it is revelation, and revelation does not speak in data. It speaks in symbol. Symbols are not decoration. They are the hidden architecture of your inner world. They are how the soul speaks when words have reached their limit. They are how the unconscious introduces you to who you really are. Not the self you perform, the self that waits behind the mask. Right now, something in you already knows this. Not logically, but intuitively, emotionally. You have seen the same animal appear in your dreams. You have felt drawn to an image you cannot explain. You have experienced a moment so meaningful it made time stop. This is not coincidence. This is contact. Your deeper self is reaching out. And the only question that matters now is this: will you learn its language? Because the soul is speaking. And it is speaking in symbol. The soul does not think the way the mind does. It does not analyze. It does not explain. It reveals. Its language is not made of arguments or facts. It speaks through images that carry depth, power, and multiple meanings all at once. When a symbol appears, it does not demand to be solved. It invites you to listen with the whole of your being. It carries a message that cannot be translated into plain words. It offers a kind of knowing that does not come from intellect but from intuition. In every ancient tradition, the sacred speaks through symbol. A burning bush, a snake shedding skin, a mountain touched by fire. These are not decorations. They are revelations in visual form. They are experiences of meaning that go beyond the surface. Carl Jung saw symbols as expressions of truths too great for language. They are how the unconscious speaks to the conscious mind. They appear in dreams, visions, and the strange events we call coincidence. They are signs of inner movement. To ignore the symbolic is to become deaf to the voice of the soul. The world becomes flat. Life becomes mechanical. But when we attune to symbol, reality deepens. We begin to feel the unseen forces at work in our experience. We begin to sense direction. The symbol is not a fantasy. It is the most precise way the soul can communicate. Not because it simplifies, but because it preserves mystery. It holds both clarity and depth. It is the soul's chosen form of dialogue. This is not a metaphor. It is a structure of reality. Your inner life is speaking in symbol whether you notice or not. The question is not whether the soul speaks this language. The question is whether you are willing to learn how to listen. We are taught to believe that symbols are secondary. They are treated as poetic extras, as flourishes added after reality is already built. But this is an illusion of a rational mind that has forgotten its roots. In truth, symbols are the blueprint of our experience. Before language formed, humans painted symbols on cave walls. They were not expressing ideas. They were encountering something sacred. A symbol is not made by the mind. It emerges from the soul. It comes from a depth that predates thought. Every culture is structured by symbol. Every religion is rooted in image. Every myth is carried by symbolic form. These are not decorations. They are the architecture of human meaning. They shape our values, our identity, and our orientation toward life. When you dream of a house, it is not just a house. It may be your psyche. When you see the same numbers repeating, it may not be chance. When you are drawn to an image with no reason, your soul may be calling. The symbolic dimension is alive. Carl Jung called symbols the language of transformation. They contain more than we consciously know. They are not invented. They are discovered. They emerge when the inner world begins to shift. They appear at moments of transition and initiation. To live without symbol is to live in exile from the depths. You may survive, but you will not be fully alive. You may function, but you will not feel the pulse of the sacred moving through your story. You will mistake the surface for the whole. Symbols are not for the educated few. They belong to everyone. They live in your dreams, in your memories, in the strange images that rise when you are lost or afraid. They come not to confuse, but to guide. The symbol is not an escape from reality. It is a key to its deeper layer. It reveals that meaning is not added after the fact. Meaning is woven into the fabric of consciousness. And the threads of that fabric are symbolic. Carl Jung did not see the mind as a machine. He saw it as a living mystery. A vast landscape of images, energies, and forces that could not be reduced to simple explanation. He did not try to control the psyche. He entered into relationship with it. Jung came to understand that the unconscious was not a place of error or repression. It was a deep well of meaning. It held patterns older than the individual. These patterns lived in dreams, myths, and religious symbols across time and culture. He called them archetypes. They were not just concepts. They were living forms that shaped human experience. They carried emotion. They created story. They emerged from the depths of the psyche and demanded recognition. For Jung, the psyche was not a private echo chamber. It was a symbolic field. Everything that happened within it had meaning. A dream was not random. A symptom was not just a problem. They were expressions of inner truth seeking form. Jung's greatest contribution was the insight that healing does not come from control. It comes from meaning, and meaning is always symbolic. When a symbol arises, it is not a curiosity, it is a message. It is the soul calling the conscious self into dialogue. This changed everything. Psychology was no longer just the study of behavior. It became the study of the symbolic life. Jung opened the door to the interior world, not as a problem to be solved, but as a mystery to be lived. He did not invent the symbolic psyche. He discovered it. He listened to it. He honored its intelligence. And through that listening, he reconnected the modern soul with an ancient wisdom that speaks without words. Dreams are not accidents of the sleeping brain. They are the soul's nightly attempt to speak. They use strange images because the truth they carry cannot be expressed in plain language. The dream bypasses logic to deliver what the soul already knows. Jung listened to dreams as sacred texts. Each one a fragment of myth unfolding in the life of an individual. He saw that the symbols in dreams often echo the great stories told across cultures. The same images return again and again: the hero, the shadow, the mother, the serpent. These are not coincidences. They are the language of the unconscious. A dream does not describe a problem, it enacts it. It shows you the inner conflict, the hidden longing, the forgotten potential. And it does this through symbol, not analysis. Jung also explored myth, not as fiction, but as psychological truth. Myths reveal the great forces that shape us from within. They are the symbolic autobiography of humanity. They show us what it means to fall, to struggle, to awaken, and to transform. To study myth is to remember what your culture has forgotten. That life has structure. That the journey inward is not chaos but pattern. That you are not lost. You are in a story older than your name, but shaped for your soul. Jung did not stop at dreams or myth. He developed a method called active imagination. In this practice, you enter into dialogue with the symbols that rise within you. You speak to the figures in your dream. You let the image unfold. You let it respond. This is not fantasy. It is spiritual attention. It is a form of listening that respects the psyche as intelligent and alive. Through active imagination, the unconscious becomes a partner in your growth. You learn to co-create with your inner world. Dreams, myth, and imagination are not childish things to be outgrown. They are the soul's core functions. They are how we participate in meaning. Without them, we remain strangers to ourselves. With them, we become participants in the mystery of being. For many, the unconscious is a shadowy basement. It is seen as a container for shame, trauma, and forgotten pain. But Jung saw something deeper. He understood that the unconscious is not just what is repressed, it is also what is sacred. The unconscious is not a storage unit for damaged memories. It is a living field of intelligence. It speaks in a language we have lost the ability to hear. It sends symbols as invitations. It offers images as medicine. It creates inner events that are not accidents but messages. Jung realized that within the unconscious lie forces older than the personal self. These are not just drives or instincts. They are archetypes. They hold the patterns of birth, death, renewal, love, betrayal, and transformation. They are the soul's grammar. When a person feels lost, it is often because they have fallen out of relationship with the unconscious. They no longer listen to its symbols. They try to manage life with logic alone. But the soul does not respond to control. It responds to attention. To approach the unconscious as sacred is to shift from fear to reverence. Nightmares become oracles. Anxiety becomes a doorway. Depression becomes a descent with purpose. The pain does not disappear, but it is no longer meaningless. Jung taught that the unconscious seeks wholeness. It wants the parts of you have forgotten to return. It wants the false self to dissolve so the real self can emerge. This movement is not linear. It is symbolic. It unfolds in metaphor and mystery. Symbols from the unconscious are not problems to be solved. They are thresholds. They carry the power to reorient the psyche. But only if we honor them. Only if we receive them with humility. Only if we stop asking them to speak the language of the ego. The unconscious is not against you. It is your deepest ally. But it does not shout. It speaks through symbol. To understand it, you must learn to see differently. You must learn to feel what an image is trying to say before you try to explain it. When we meet the unconscious with respect, it becomes more than a psychological space. It becomes a sacred text. And the symbols it sends are not errors. They are scripture. We live in an age of explanation. We can describe everything and understand nothing. We have more data than ever before, yet we are more disconnected from meaning than any generation in history. Information is not wisdom. It does not feed the soul. Symbolic illiteracy is one of the great diseases of our time. We no longer know how to interpret the messages life sends us. We ignore the dream. We dismiss the image. We explain away the synchronicity. In doing so, we cut ourselves off from inner guidance. The result is fragmentation. We live in pieces. Our thinking is separated from feeling. Our actions are separated from soul. Our lives are efficient, but empty. We know how to produce, but we have forgotten how to dwell in mystery. Symbolic literacy is not about fantasy. It is about perception. It is the ability to see beyond the surface, to recognize that events are layered, that images carry weight, that your life is not just happening, it is speaking. Carl Jung understood this long before culture reached its current crisis. He saw that without symbols, we lose connection to the inner world. Without symbols, healing becomes mechanical, growth becomes forced, and the soul retreats in silence. To read symbols is to read your life as a myth in progress. It is to see meaning not just in the extraordinary but in the ordinary. A broken object, a repeating dream. A strange feeling that will not go away. These are not distractions. They are messages. Learning the language of symbol is not a luxury for mystics or poets. It is a necessity for wholeness. Without it, we drift. With it, we return to center. We find coherence in chaos. We recover the lost thread of purpose. The world is not flat. It is alive with layers. Every experience has more than one dimension. Symbolic literacy is the skill that allows us to navigate this depth. It turns confusion into insight. It turns suffering into transformation. If we are to heal as individuals and as a culture, we must recover the symbolic gaze, not to escape the world, but to see it truly. Not to invent meaning, but to recognize the meaning that is already there, waiting to be seen. A sign points to something specific. It delivers a clear message. It tells you what to do. A red light means stop. A logo identifies a product. A sign functions within a fixed system. It contains no depth beyond its assigned purpose. A symbol is entirely different. It does not point in a single direction. It opens in many. A symbol cannot be reduced to one meaning because it is not created by reason. It emerges from the soul. It carries the weight of inner truth and outer mystery. The purpose of a sign is to direct behavior. The purpose of a symbol is to invite transformation. A sign is useful for navigation. A symbol is essential for awakening. It reaches into the unconscious and stirs something sleeping. It asks you not to follow a rule but to feel a reality. Jung insisted that symbols are not signs with poetic flair. They belong to a different category of experience. They contain contradiction. They contain paradox. They hold meanings that evolve as the one receiving them evolves. They are alive. You cannot decode a symbol the way you solve a problem. A symbol is not a riddle with one answer. It is a presence that continues to speak as long as you are willing to listen. It is a bridge between the known and the unknown. A sign gives instruction. A symbol gives insight. One satisfies the intellect. The other nourishes the soul. When you encounter a true symbol, it does not close the question. It deepens it. It draws you inward. It pulls you toward meaning that cannot be fully named. In the modern world, we confuse symbols with signs. We flatten them. We analyze them until they are lifeless. We forget that they were never meant to be solved. They were meant to be lived with, to be contemplated, to be entered as one would enter sacred space. To reclaim the symbol is to reclaim access to depth. It is to remember that not all knowledge is functional. Some knowledge changes who you are simply by being near it. That is the power of the symbol. It does not just inform. It initiates. The conscious mind sees what is obvious. It works in daylight. It names, sorts, and judges. It creates categories and seeks control. It wants certainty. But the unconscious does not care for categories. It speaks in images. It breathes in mystery. Between these two realms lies the symbol. It is the bridge that connects what you know with what you have not yet discovered. It takes the shape of an image, a dream, a sensation. It carries messages from the deep to the surface without losing their mystery. The conscious mind cannot enter the unconscious directly. It would be overwhelmed. The symbol allows a meeting place. It translates the language of the soul into a form that the ego can begin to understand without reducing it into lifeless facts. When a symbol rises from the unconscious, it comes with emotional weight. It feels charged. It asks for attention. It brings together something old and something new. It holds a truth the conscious mind has not yet grasped, but already senses as real. Jung believed that without this bridge, the two parts of the psyche drift apart. The conscious mind becomes rigid. The unconscious grows chaotic. The symbol brings integration. It allows a dialogue between what is seen and what is hidden. This is why symbols appear in dreams. This is why they emerge during moments of crisis or change. The unconscious is trying to speak. It does not use argument. It sends an image. The symbol is the meeting ground where transformation becomes possible. To engage a symbol is to create inner relationship. It is to allow the deeper parts of you to have a voice. It is not about interpretation. It is about presence, listening, feeling, letting the symbol work on you rather than working to conquer it. The bridge cannot be forced. It must be received. The more you honor the symbol, the stronger the bridge becomes. And the stronger that bridge, the more whole your life becomes. Because you are no longer divided from yourself. You are in conversation. A true symbol is never exhausted. You can reflect on it for years and still uncover new layers. It resists final interpretation. It speaks to the intellect, but also to the body, the heart, and the imagination. Its meaning is not given. It unfolds. When a symbol appears, the mind immediately tries to explain it. This is natural. We want clarity. But the power of a symbol lies precisely in its ambiguity. It opens rather than closes. It invites rather than defines. It expands rather than narrows. Jung understood that the deepest truths cannot be captured in a single sentence. They must be lived into. Symbols carry these truths. They offer meaning that moves beyond language. They deliver knowledge that must be felt before it can be known. A symbol holds both the known and the unknown in the same space. It contains conscious associations and unconscious resonances. It carries what is personal and what is collective. It bridges time, culture, and individual experience without collapsing difference. You cannot measure the meaning of a symbol. It is not quantitative. It does not belong to logic alone. It belongs to soul. When you try to dissect it, it retreats. When you approach it with reverence, it reveals more than you expected. This is why religious icons endure, why mythic images survive thousands of years. They are not bound to a single culture or belief. They touch something universal. They offer a mirror to the inner world, and in doing so, they change the outer one. A symbol does not tell you what to think. It invites you to see. It guides without controlling. It teaches without demanding. And the more you stay with it, the more it becomes part of your internal landscape. It does not just carry meaning. It becomes meaning. In a time obsessed with clarity, the symbol reminds us that some truths are too large for words. Some realities can only be approached through image, emotion, and resonance. The symbol holds that sacred excess. It gives you more than you ask for. A real symbol does not simply inform you, it moves you. It stirs something ancient within. It creates a feeling that is difficult to name, but impossible to ignore. This is what Jung called the numinous quality of the symbol. It is not just meaningful. It is alive. The numinous does not flatter the ego. It humbles it. It reminds you that there are forces within you that are greater than your will. These forces are not enemies. They are energies waiting to be known. The symbol awakens them and gives them form. When a symbol enters your awareness, it often comes with awe or fear, not because it is dangerous, but because it is deep. It touches a layer of the psyche where words lose power. It brings the sacred into view, even when you are not looking for it. This is why people dream of fire, water, animals, or ancient figures. These are not random images. They are containers of soul energy. They do not belong to the surface world. They rise from the depths to show you something about your own mystery. The numinous symbol does not belong to opinion. It is not created by personal taste. It arrives with a force of its own. It commands attention. It does not beg to be explained. It asks to be felt, welcomed, and lived with. Such symbols mark turning points in the psyche. They do not entertain, they initiate. They do not decorate your inner world, they shift it. They bring the unknown into visibility, and in doing so, they invite you into transformation. Jung understood that this numinous encounter is essential for psychological growth. Without it, change remains cosmetic. With it, change becomes sacred. The symbol becomes a doorway. And what it opens is not a better version of who you already are, but someone you have never met. The unknown within is not a void. It is a well. The symbol lowers the bucket. It brings something to the surface that was always there, but hidden. That moment of contact is not intellectual. It is existential. It changes you. To engage a numinous symbol is to enter into relationship with the deepest parts of your own soul. It is to say yes to what you do not fully understand. It is to become more human by becoming more whole. Across time and culture, the soul's journey has been told as a descent. In myth, the hero does not rise first. He falls. She does not begin with glory. She enters darkness. This pattern is not superstition. It is psychological truth encoded in symbolic form. The story of Inanna descending into the underworld. The path of Orpheus through the land of the dead. The vision of Dante in the Inferno. The crucifixion before resurrection. These are not just religious or poetic images. They are maps of inner experience. Jung understood that descent is not regression. It is initiation. The soul does not fall into darkness to be destroyed. It descends to retrieve what has been lost. It goes down not to escape life, but to make life whole again. In modern terms, this descent appears as depression, crisis, loss, or profound confusion. The world no longer makes sense. The ego's control collapses. What felt solid dissolves. And yet, beneath the pain, something else begins to stir. A deeper voice begins to speak. That voice does not offer explanations. It speaks in symbols, in images that appear in dreams, in strange memories, in a sudden pull toward something unknown. The descent marks the beginning of soul work. It is the return to what was forgotten. You are not the first to walk this path. The myths are there to remind you. The darkness is not punishment, it is passage. The symbols are not decoration, they are direction. They are the signs that help you walk when reason fails. In descent, the ego dies a little, but the soul begins to live more fully. The ancient stories show us that return is possible. Not a return to what was, but a return to wholeness. A new self formed in the fire of inner transformation. This is not metaphor alone. It is a structure of human change. Without descent, there is no true integration. Without the symbolic map, the journey becomes chaos. But with it, we remember that every fall carries the possibility of return. Carl Jung called the deepest process of psychological and spiritual development individuation. It is not self-improvement. It is not becoming better. It is becoming whole. It is the movement toward the realization of the true self, hidden beneath the persona. This path does not unfold in straight lines. It does not offer a map with clear instructions. It moves in spirals, in symbols, in dreams, and in deep inner shifts. The process is not efficient. It is alive, and it does not obey the desires of the ego. Individuation begins when the surface identity starts to crack. When what once satisfied no longer holds meaning. When success feels hollow. When loss forces a re-evaluation of everything. These are the thresholds where the symbolic journey begins. The psyche begins to send images, a recurring dream, a strange animal, a forgotten memory, a voice you cannot place but feel to be your own. These are not signs of pathology. They are the soul's invitation into deeper knowing. The journey of individuation is mythic in nature. It follows the structure of descent and return. There is a fall. There's a confrontation with shadow. There is an encounter with the anima or animus. There is death. There is rebirth. Each stage is marked by symbols that arise unbidden. They cannot be forced. They must be received, and they must be honored. To ignore them is to stall the process. To engage them is to grow in a way no external system can promise. Individuation does not lead to perfection. It leads to authenticity. It leads to integration of opposites. It leads to the discovery that you are not one thing. You are many layers held together by a deeper center, which Jung called the self. This self is not the ego inflated. It is the symbolic center of the psyche. It expresses itself through dreams, synchronicities, and deep inner knowing. It is the guide that moves through images, calling the conscious mind into alignment. To walk the path of individuation is to surrender to the language of the soul. It is to stop demanding clarity and start listening for truth. It is to live symbolically, not by avoiding reality, but by seeing it through deeper eyes. The symbolic journey is not optional. It is the structure of inner transformation. Whether you accept it or resist it, the soul continues to speak. And the more you listen, the more the journey begins to reveal its shape. The journey to the true self does not unfold through clear signs. It does not offer direct instructions. It emerges through image, metaphor, and symbol. This is not by accident. It is the only way something as vast as the soul can reveal itself. The ego seeks clarity. It wants answers that are clean and immediate. But the soul works differently. It invites depth. It asks you to slow down. It wraps meaning in mystery because only mystery has the power to protect what is sacred from being reduced. When the path appears in a dream, it does not come as a straight road. It might appear as a staircase in water, a locked door, a bird flying through fog. These are not distractions. They are the language of inner knowing speaking in code that the heart understands. The deeper self cannot be grasped through analysis alone. It must be approached with reverence. Metaphor is not a limitation. It is a gift. It gives the psyche room to unfold. It honors the complexity of truth by refusing to flatten it. Jung believed that the symbols we encounter on the inner path are not projections. They are guides. They are manifestations of meaning that come from the center of the self. They veil what they reveal so that we are forced into relationship, not control. When you walk this path, you begin to see patterns in what once seemed random. You begin to notice that events carry emotional resonance beyond logic. That a repeated image in your dreams might be a message, not a mistake. That metaphor is not escape, but entry. The path to self is veiled because it must be walked in trust. It is not a formula to follow. It is a conversation to enter. The soul tests your sincerity. It asks whether you are willing to live with uncertainty in exchange for transformation. What you meet in image is not illusion. It is truth in symbolic form. To see clearly, you must first learn to see differently. Not through the eyes of control, but through the eyes of wonder. Not through fear, but through willingness. The veil is not a barrier. It is a filter. It allows meaning to come through in a way that respects the inner world. It slows the journey so the lessons can take root. It protects the process from being turned into another task on the ego's list. To honor the metaphor is to honor the soul. To walk the path veiled in image is to walk with humility. And only the humble can truly see. Each night, the psyche writes its own myth. It does not ask for permission. It does not wait for logic. It sends images, stories, and symbols across the threshold of sleep. These are not random. They are sacred. They are the soul speaking in its native language. Dreams are not noise. They are narrative. Each one is a message formed in image and emotion. They bypass reason because what they carry cannot be reached through reason alone. They touch something deeper. They reveal what the waking mind refuses to face. Carl Jung saw dreams as the most direct expressions of the unconscious. He believed that in each dream lies a fragment of the total self, a reflection of the wholeness waiting to emerge. A piece of the inner myth rising to be seen. Some dreams comfort, some disturb. Some leave us shaken for days. The ones we remember most often come with symbolic intensity. A house collapsing, a child lost, a light in the dark. These are not just stories. They are encounters. To ignore a dream is to silence the soul. To engage it is to open the door to self-knowledge. You do not need to interpret everything. You need to listen. You need to let the symbol stay alive. Let the dream stay strange. Let it breathe. Every individual carries a private mythology, a sequence of symbols unique to their life. These may be rooted in culture, but they are shaped by experience, memory, longing, and trauma. Dreams express this mythology with honesty that the ego cannot manage. Your recurring dream is not a malfunction. It is a message repeating until it is received. Your nightmares are not punishments. They are urgent voices asking you to turn toward what you have denied. They are fierce teachers sent by the soul. Some dreams arrive just once and change you forever. Others unfold over years, revealing more with each return. This is how the soul speaks when it knows you are finally ready to hear. It does not speak in commands, it speaks in symbol. To keep a dream journal is to become a student of your own myth. To track the images is to trace the movements of your psyche. To meet a dream with reverence is to begin the great conversation that leads to wholeness. Your dreams are not separate from your life. They are your life told symbolically. They are the mirror in which the soul reveals its shape. To follow them is not to escape the world. It is to find your place in it. We live in an age that worships clarity. Every question demands an answer. Every mystery must be solved. We do not tolerate ambiguity. We reduce everything to systems, formulas, and explanations. But in doing so, we have exiled the soul. The need to explain has become compulsive. We no longer ask what something means. We ask how it works. We strip events of their symbolic depth to make them predictable. In the process, we lose contact with what makes life meaningful. Literalism is not intelligence. It is a defense against mystery. It protects us from discomfort, but also blocks transformation. When we explain too quickly, we no longer feel. When we reduce symbols to signs, we silence the very voices that could save us. This addiction to explanation is everywhere. In education, we reward memorization over reflection. In science, we treat poetry as irrelevant. In religion, we turn myths into historical claims and lose their power. We want control more than truth. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He warned that modern people had become spiritually dehydrated. Surrounded by information, they lacked nourishment. Their souls were starving not for facts, but for images. Not for certainty, but for connection to the unknown. When we insist on clarity at all costs, we break the bridge between conscious and unconscious. We ignore dreams. We flatten metaphors. We treat symptoms like mechanical failures instead of symbolic cries. We become technicians of life rather than participants. The result is inner emptiness. We become productive, but lost. We function, but do not feel rooted. We know how to build, but not how to belong. We seek stimulation because meaning has disappeared. And meaning cannot survive in a world that refuses mystery. The soul does not speak in straight lines. It speaks in spirals. It does not respond to control. It responds to attention. If we keep explaining away our experiences, we will miss the call to transformation that comes wrapped in symbol. To live in a literal culture is to forget how to dream. It is to become strangers to our own depth. And without that depth, we lose the very thing that makes us human. The soul does not need more content. It does not crave more noise. It does not thrive on stimulation or novelty. What the soul needs is depth. It needs meaning that touches the heart, images that speak to the unconscious, and symbols that carry us into mystery. In a world without symbol, the soul cannot breathe. The rituals become hollow, the words lose power. The structures remain, but their spirit is gone. We move through motions without transformation. We act without presence. We speak without resonance. When symbols are stripped from life, everything becomes literal. The wedding becomes a party. The funeral becomes logistics. The sacred becomes superstition. What once pointed to the eternal is now reduced to custom. The mystery is lost, and with it, the meaning. The soul needs symbols because it does not communicate in facts. It communicates through images, sensations, and patterns. A symbol allows the soul to express something that cannot be spoken directly. Without that space, the voice of the soul falls silent. Jung warned that without symbol, people begin to suffer in ways they cannot name. They feel a deep dissatisfaction even when nothing appears wrong. They feel anxiety without a cause. Depression without an event. These are not just psychological states. They are signs of starvation. Our culture often misdiagnoses this condition. It prescribes distraction. It prescribes control. It offers more speed, more success, more entertainment. But none of these satisfy the deeper hunger. Because what is missing is not pleasure. What is missing is presence. Symbol is how the inner world comes into contact with the outer. It is how the invisible becomes visible. Without it, we are disconnected from the roots of our own being. We no longer see life as meaningful. We see it as machinery. The soul cannot be reached by explanation. It does not want to be analyzed. It wants to be known. It wants to be seen. It wants to be engaged through symbol. Because only symbol can carry the weight of what the soul has to say. When symbols vanish, so does our access to the sacred. Without that access, we do not grow. We do not awaken. We survive, but we forget who we are. Literalism is not just a misunderstanding. It is a form of forgetting. It forgets that meaning is layered. It forgets that truth can wear many faces. It forgets that the deepest realities have never belonged to a single definition. It is not clarity. It is amnesia. Literalism forgets how to see symbolically. It treats sacred stories as historical claims. It demands proof where reverence is needed. It looks at metaphor and asks for data. It turns myth into superstition and mystery into error. In doing so, it kills what it cannot control. The modern mind often believes it has outgrown symbolism. But this belief is itself a symptom of forgetting. It forgets that ancient cultures did not think in abstractions. They thought in symbols. They lived inside stories that connected heaven and earth, body and soul. When we lose this symbolic consciousness, we lose the map. We no longer know where we are in the inner world. We cannot tell the difference between transformation and trauma, between initiation and collapse. Everything becomes either pathology or productivity. Literalism breaks the link between image and soul. It says a serpent is only an animal. It says a flood is just a weather event. It says a dream is just neural activity. These are not explanations. They are erasures. They strip the world of its voice. Carl Jung saw that literalism was not neutral. It had consequences. It closed doors that once led to healing. It silenced images that once guided inner growth. It made people feel lost without understanding why. It disconnected the human being from meaning itself. To live in literalism is to forget that you are more than flesh and thought. It is to forget that symbols once held your deepest fears and longings. It is to forget that behind every image is a presence trying to speak. A presence that does not speak in facts but in form. This is not a return to fantasy. It is a return to depth. A return to the wisdom of the symbolic mind. A return to a way of knowing that honors the soul and its unique language. To remember that way is to recover what literalism has made us forget. Despite our obsession with reason, the hunger for myth has not disappeared. It has gone underground. It shows up in the stories we tell, the films we watch, the characters we are drawn to. We are starving for symbols even as we pretend we no longer need them. The popularity of epic narratives, superheroes, and fantasy worlds is not coincidence. These are modern myths wearing new costumes. They offer more than entertainment. They offer archetypes. They offer patterns of meaning that speak to something ancient in us. Even in therapy, people do not come looking only for diagnosis. They come with questions of purpose. They come with dreams that disturb them. They come with patterns they cannot explain. What they seek is not technique alone. What they seek is mythic insight. Carl Jung knew that modern people were not less spiritual. They were spiritually displaced. Their longing had not vanished. It had been silenced by systems that do not honor the symbolic. But the psyche does not forget. It continues to send symbols, hoping to be seen. Culture may deny myth, but it cannot eliminate the need for it. Without myth, we do not know how to suffer meaningfully. We do not know how to grow through crisis. We do not know how to return from dissent. Myth teaches us how to be human. We disguise this hunger with technology and noise. But at night, when the screens go dark, the deeper questions return. Who am I really? What is this pain trying to show me? Why do I feel called toward something I cannot name? These are mythic questions. Our collective psychology is saturated with unmet longing. The soul is not passive. When denied its stories, it creates symptoms: anxiety, restlessness, disconnection. These are not simply disorders. They are the echoes of a forgotten myth demanding to be remembered. To restore myth is not to return to old beliefs. It is to recover symbolic depth. It is to reclaim the stories that make inner life visible. It is to meet yourself not as a problem to be fixed, but as a character in a sacred drama still unfolding. Imagination is not fantasy. It is not escape. It is one of the oldest and most essential capacities of the soul. Without it, there is no vision. Without it, we cannot see what lies beneath the surface. Imagination is how the invisible becomes visible. The modern world has reduced imagination to something childish. It is treated as play, not as perception. But in the symbolic life, imagination is not optional. It is the organ of inner sight. It allows us to feel truth that cannot be touched by logic alone. Carl Jung called imagination a mode of knowing. He did not mean daydreaming. He meant the ability to enter into relationship with the images that arise from the unconscious. This is not entertainment. This is revelation. Imagination allows you to approach an image without needing to define it. It lets you sit with a symbol, feel its presence, hear its voice. It teaches you to wait, to receive, to let meaning unfold rather than force it into form. When we lose imagination, we lose depth. Life becomes flat. The soul grows silent. We begin to believe that only what can be measured is real, that only what can be named has value. But the symbolic life depends on the opposite. It depends on wonder. Imagination does not fabricate truth, it reveals it. It creates the space for mystery to move. It makes room for contradiction and paradox. It invites meaning that does not arrive through proof, but through resonance. To see symbolically, you must imagine. You must feel the truth of a dream without needing to dissect it. You must let a story work on you instead of explaining it away. You must risk being changed by what you cannot fully control. Imagination restores balance to a mind addicted to certainty. It brings warmth to a life dominated by function. It opens the door to the soul's voice. And when that voice begins to speak, everything changes. To relearn the language of the soul, we must reclaim imagination, not as illusion, but as insight. Not as distraction, but as sacred attention. It is not the opposite of reality. It is how we enter reality more fully. The ability to see symbolically is not lost forever. It is forgotten. It waits just beneath the surface of daily awareness. It returns when we begin to look at life, not just for what it is, but for what it means. This shift does not require new beliefs. It requires new seeing. Symbolic vision begins with attention. It begins with noticing what pulls you for no clear reason. A recurring image, a dream that lingers, a strange encounter that feels heavier than it should. These are not accidents. They are invitations. To reclaim this vision, you must learn to listen without demanding explanation. You must let images speak before you translate them. You must allow mystery to be present without rushing to interpret it. This is not passive. It is a deeper form of participation. The symbolic eye does not just look outward. It looks inward. It sees your symptoms as messages. It sees your relationships as mirrors. It sees your inner conflict not as failure, but as a stage in the journey of becoming whole. Carl Jung encouraged people to cultivate symbolic awareness through reflection, dream work, and attention to the small events of life. Not because these things are magical, but because they are meaningful. The symbol hides in the ordinary, waiting to be seen. When symbolic vision awakens, life changes texture. Coincidences feel like synchronicities. Emotions become gateways. Objects begin to carry emotional charge. You are no longer just surviving your life. You are interpreting it. You are living it from the inside out. To reclaim symbolic vision is to restore the connection between soul and world. It is to stop seeing life as random. It is to begin reading your experience as a living text. It is to reawaken wonder in places that had become numb. This kind of seeing is not fast. It is not efficient. It slows you down. It deepens your breath. It reintroduces mystery where certainty had grown rigid. And in that space, the soul begins to speak again. Not with answers, but with presence. Symbolic dialogue begins when you stop asking the soul to speak in facts. It begins when you let the images come without judgment. When you meet the symbol not as a puzzle, but as a presence. The tools are simple, but the impact is profound. Journaling is one of the most accessible ways to enter this dialogue. It is not about documenting events. It is about listening to the inner world. You write down dreams, impressions, symbols that appear during the day. You record not to explain, but to witness. When you write a dream, do not rush to interpret it. Sit with it. Feel its atmosphere. Notice the emotions it brings. Draw the image. Speak to the figures. Ask questions. Let the dream unfold in its own time. It is alive. It will respond. Dream work is not reserved for therapists. It is a natural capacity of the soul. You can return to a dream in waking life. Close your eyes. Re-enter the scene. Let it move. Let it change. You are not remembering. You are participating. Creative ritual is another way to engage symbol. This does not mean following a prescribed ceremony. It means creating symbolic acts that honor what is moving within you. Lighting a candle for a lost part of yourself. Burying a stone to mark release. Painting an image from a dream. These acts are not magic in the sense of control. They are magic in the sense of meaning. They speak to the unconscious. They let the soul know you are listening. They make the inner world tangible. They give form to the invisible. Symbolic dialogue also means paying attention to what repeats. A word that keeps showing up. An animal that crosses your path. A song that evokes a memory. These are not random. They may be threads from the unconscious, asking to be followed. This practice requires sincerity. It cannot be faked. The unconscious responds to attention that is quiet and real. You do not have to understand what the symbol means. You only have to respect that it means something. That is enough to open the door. The more you engage in this dialogue, the more symbols begin to speak clearly. You will recognize their voice. You will begin to trust their timing. And slowly, the symbolic becomes part of how you live, not just something you analyze. This is not about control. It is about relationship. And like any deep relationship, it grows through presence, patience, and care. When a symbol is welcomed with presence, it begins to work on you. It does not need to be solved. It needs to be held. The act of conscious engagement invites the symbol to unfold. What begins as an image becomes an inner movement. Symbols are not passive objects. They are containers of energy. They hold emotion, memory, desire, fear, and wisdom all at once. When you make space for a symbol in your awareness, you give that energy permission to rise and reshape you. Carl Jung observed that when a person truly lives with a symbol, change occurs. Not through effort alone, but through resonance. The symbol speaks directly to the unconscious. It activates forgotten potentials. It softens what has become rigid. Conscious engagement means showing up with respect. It means giving the image time. It means returning to it again and again, letting it evolve. A symbol that once frightened you may later become a guide. One that confused you may reveal a truth that words could never hold. This process is not linear. It is cyclical and layered. You may return to the same image for years and still find it speaking in new ways. Each stage of life brings fresh insight. The symbol does not change. Your relationship to it deepens. Transformation through symbol is not abstract. It becomes embodied. It changes how you feel, how you speak, how you respond. It alters your sense of identity. It brings buried material into the light and invites it into integration. When a symbol is taken seriously, it can reorganize the psyche. It can soften defenses. It can bridge inner divisions. It can call back exiled parts of the self, not through force, but through meaning. The symbol brings together what was once split. This kind of transformation cannot be rushed. It cannot be predicted. It must be allowed. The more you force it, the more it slips away. But if you sit with the symbol, let it live with you, let it shape your questions, something in you begins to shift. This is not technique, it is devotion. It is the sacred act of entering dialogue with the soul and trusting that what rises from within is not chaos, but guidance. The symbol knows the way even when the mind does not. To live symbolically is not to live in fantasy. It is to live with depth. It is to recognize that life speaks through patterns, images, and experiences that cannot be reduced to explanation. It is to live not on the surface of events, but at their center. A symbolic life does not reject the world. It sees the world more fully. It notices what others miss. It listens for what is not said. It walks through the day with a sense that each encounter might carry a message. Each moment might be meaningful. When you live symbolically, you stop chasing endless answers. You begin asking better questions. You trust your intuition. You begin to notice when something feels archetypal. You know when a dream is not just personal, but part of a larger process unfolding. This way of living brings coherence. It gives you language for your suffering. It reveals the structure beneath your chaos. It reminds you that your journey is not random. You are part of something larger than your personality. Something sacred is trying to become conscious through your life. Living symbolically does not mean having constant clarity. It means having contact. It means being in relationship with the unseen. It means accepting that mystery is not an obstacle but a companion. That you are not the author of your life, but its interpreter. When you begin to see symbolically, the world softens. Your heart opens. You carry your pain differently. You stop trying to fix everything and begin to witness what wants to transform. You stop asking who is to blame and start asking what is being asked of you. This shift is not always dramatic. It can begin in small ways. A journal entry, a dream remembered, a moment of awe, a symbol held in silence. But from those small acts, something begins to change. Meaning reappears. Life becomes luminous again. The symbolic life does not require special knowledge. It begins with a choice to see differently. It begins with the willingness to let life speak. Not just through facts and functions, but through patterns, metaphors, and images that carry emotional weight. You do not need to retreat from the world to live symbolically. You need only to slow down and pay attention. Notice the image that stays with you after a conversation. Notice the dream that refuses to fade. Notice what repeats, what draws you, what disturbs you. Each of these can be a doorway. A symbol does not always arrive with clarity. Sometimes it arrives with discomfort. Sometimes it comes wrapped in confusion. But if you stay with it, if you give it time, it begins to reveal something essential. Try looking at your life as if it were a myth in progress. Ask what chapter you are in. Ask what archetypes are active. Ask what symbols keep showing up and what they might be asking of you. Let the events of your life become images, not just occurrences. This practice does not require you to abandon logic. It requires you to expand it, to make room for feeling, intuition, and presence. It asks you to trust that meaning is not something you create alone. It is something you discover through relationship. You might begin by creating small rituals around meaningful experiences. You might write letters to symbols that appear in dreams. You might place a found object on your desk and sit with it in silence. These acts are simple, but they invite depth. The symbolic gaze transforms the ordinary. A walk becomes a pilgrimage. A conversation becomes an initiation. A struggle becomes a descent with purpose. This is not poetic illusion. It is psychological precision. It is how the soul makes meaning. You are not being asked to believe in something abstract. You are being asked to feel what is already present, to recognize that beneath the literal, there is always a layer waiting to be seen. The soul speaks through that layer. Every day. When perception changes, reality changes. Not because the facts shift, but because their meaning deepens. The symbolic gaze does not alter events. It reveals their hidden architecture. It shows that the world has always been speaking. We had only forgotten how to listen. To learn to see again is to recover a forgotten birthright. It is to reclaim the soul's original language. It is to look at your own life as if it mattered beyond function, beyond habit, beyond explanation. It is to re-enter the sacred dimension of experience. This shift does not depend on belief. It depends on attention. It asks you to look not just at what is happening, but into it, to feel the resonance, to allow beauty to be a message, to let pain be a symbol, to let uncertainty be a teacher. The symbolic gaze changes how you meet yourself. It softens judgment. It opens compassion. It reveals that your wounds carry stories, that your fears have forms, that your inner world is not chaotic, but coated with meaning, all waiting to be seen. It also changes how you meet others. You stop reducing people to roles. You begin to notice their symbols, their patterns, their deeper truth. Relationships become less about control and more about presence. Conflict becomes a potential for revelation. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But this becoming is not a straight line. It is a symbolic spiral. Each step guided by images, dreams, and moments that touch something beyond words. To live this way is not to escape the world. It is to participate in it more fully. It is to see that the earth is not just matter. It is myth. It is mystery. It is meaning in motion. The symbolic gaze is not an add-on to life. It is a return to its essence. The world changes when you change how you see. When you stop looking for what is useful and start listening for what is true. When you let the symbolic speak. When you trust the image. When you walk through life as if it were sacred again. This is only the beginning. The soul has much more to say. It speaks not only in isolated symbols, but in recurring patterns that shape our entire journey. These patterns are not random. They are archetypes. They are the great inner forces that move through every human life. In the next part of this series, we will enter the realm of archetypes. We will explore how they live within us, how they appear in dreams and myths, and how they guide us toward transformation. Archetypes are not just ideas. They are symbolic energies that carry deep meaning. We will look at the mother, the shadow, the wise old man, the hero, the trickster, and many more. Each one offers a lens through which to see your story. Each one carries a challenge, a gift, and a call to integration. You do not need to believe in archetypes for them to affect you. They are part of the structure of the psyche. They shape your relationships, your fears, your longings, and your path forward. To recognize them is to begin living with clarity and depth. As we move forward, bring your attention back to the symbols that have spoken to you in this first exploration. Reflect on the images that stirred something in you. Revisit the dreams that feel unfinished. They are part of your myth, and your myth is still unfolding. This is not a theoretical journey. It is personal. It is alive. The symbols are waiting. The archetypes are moving. Your soul is ready for more. In the next chapter, we will listen even more closely. The language is already within you. Let us continue the conversation with the soul.